Loads of people have requested the fight story Busta Beatz versus Nick, the Golden Gloves boxer that was part of Little Italy. If you don't know who these guys are, see my video, Who is Busta Beatz? See my video on Little Italy. They were running the whites for a little bit over the Aryan Brotherhood, and they completely corrupted the guards. It was quite cool how they did it. So, straight into the fight in this one. Now, Nick had been helping Busta Beatz with his trying to get in touch with his foster parents and his legal situation. So that was why it was a big surprise that these guys ended up scrapping. So I'm just reading from Hard Time now, new edition, chapter 30. Capitalizing on a run of undefeated fights, Nick becomes the new head of the whites. He hadn't lost a fight up until this point. He moved Slopester into his cell as a gopher. Slopester was a youngster out of Sunny Slope who we had sending him on little work missions like doing laundry. He'd get extra cheese, he'd be selling cheese and stuff like that. When problems with individual whites arose, Nick settles them with his fists rather than sending torpedoes in. So some gang leaders, if someone is acting up in the white race, for example, the white gang leader might not go and smash that guy in person. He might send his torpedoes in. Torpedoes are guys who are looking to rise up in the gang by putting work in for the leader. But Nick just goes in and knocks these guys out himself. Every few days he fights and wins. A Mexican American annoys us all by standing under the stairs, crooning like a backstreet boy. One afternoon, he refuses to pipe down, even though Nick is on the phone. Nick hands up and corners him in a cell. A punch to the face propels the singer into the day room. Nick chases him around the stairs. When Sergeant Baptist steps into the pod, the singer dashes out of the door, never to return. Nick's next 3 fights last slightly longer. They end in submissions from his opponents, who emerge battered and dazed. The whites, intimidated by Nick's prowess, behave themselves for a few weeks, during which Nick doesn't have to fight. Now, this is county jail. You've got new people coming in and out. Very transitory environment. People aren't settled down like they are in prison. So that's what causes way more violence in the county jails where everyone's unsentenced than the prison system where they're settled down and they're already sentenced and they're just getting on with it. 3 Mexican Americans move into our pod. 2 older Chicano gang members who hate Mexican nationals, and Busta Beatz, stuck in the system pending mental health reports. I mentioned in a previous video that Busta Beatz was my cellmate, but he was getting moved around the system constantly, so he wasn't my cellmate for long. He got moved over to where Wildman was housed, but now he's back again in my pod. Nick and I have our fiancés try to locate Busta Beatz' foster parents, who we hope might offer him support and help with his legal situation. During one of Stalker's nightly fart storms. Now, I've got a cellmate called Stalker, and he delights in holding in his farts all day, and then when we get locked down at night, he just unleashes this avalanche of farts upon me and my other cellmate, Honduras. And this guy's farts, honestly, I've written several paragraphs on them in another section of this book. We had to not just pinch our noses, we'd wrap towels and sheets around our head to try and insulate ourselves from the palpable essence of these gaseous emissions. So, and Stalker was just lying there giggling his tits off while he was just unleashing fart after fart upon us. That's how I learned the word pedoro from Honduras. Pedoro means fart man. So, Honduras warns me that the 2 Chicano gang members, Chicano means Mexican American, these are separate from the Mexicans, separate gang, actually at war against each other in the Arizona prison system back then. The Chicano gang members plan to stir up a race riot between the Mexicans and the Mexican Americans by using Busta Beatz as a torpedo to smash a Mexican. So racial tension escalates. I'm returning from court when Nick diverts me to his cell. Shit's getting out of control with the Chicanos and the Mexicans. I stopped a fight in your cell today. One of the new Chicanos tried to smash Honduras. Over what, I asked dismayed. The TV channels. They took it to your cell, so I went in there before your property could get bloodied and destroyed. So if two guys have got a beef in the day room, they don't fight it out in the day room. They go to a cell so that it's more out of view of the guard tower because they just want to have a fight, squash the beef, and life goes on. I appreciate that, man, I say. Shocked, the violence entered my home and someone picked on my harmless little cellmate. Honduras was the skinny guy. He was a coyote for the Mexican cartel, helping people cross the border and drug shipments across the border, people walking through the desert and stuff like that. But he was very respectful, religious, didn't cooperate with the police, and he ended up getting his charges either dropped or time served, and he got out. I think the cartel assigned him a lawyer right away. Later on, Busta Beatz barges into a mellow Jehovah's Witness who's been my neighbor since my arrival in Tower 6, who is eating Red Death with the Mexicans. Few things here now. Red Death, as I've mentioned, look at my videos on what is prison food. It's the mystery meat slop. And this mellow Jehovah's Witness, later on, if you watch my video, What Happens to Sex Offenders in Prison, this is the guy who went to court one day and he was living with the head Mexican in a cell. And it was on the TV news that this guy molested his niece. And the Mexicans, when he came back from court, waited till a guard did a security walk and tortured this guy. And when he came out of his cell, he was covered in blood from head to toe, unrecognizable. And I've never heard a human being wail in such suffering and pain as this guy while they tortured him for 30 minutes. I'll never forget what that sounds like. It's creeping me out right now just remembering it. The Mexicans rise fast as if to attack Busta Beatz, because Busta Beatz is Mexican American, remember? Different group from the Mexicans. Nick springs up and orders Busta Beatz to apologize to the Jehovah's Witness. So you've got all this interracial stuff happening because this is the county jail. A lot of this stuff wouldn't go down in the prison system. I wouldn't be given a cellmate who was a different race like that. But the gang rules, it's a bit different in the county jail. I ain't apologizing. Are you going to fucking make me? Now, I was really disappointed in Busta Beatz at this point because me and Nick were helping him find his foster parents. But even worse, he's now called Nick out in front of everybody by saying, are you going to make me? Now, Nick has got to step up to the plate because everybody's watching the day room. He's the leader of the whites. And to disrespect the leader of the whites like that, that's getting called out. If he doesn't act now, he's going to be smashed by everybody within his own race, which is what happened to Carter when Gravedigger took over the whites. If you've seen my other videos or read Hard Time, when Carter didn't step up against the head of the blacks, well, he tried to, but he ran out the cell after the head of blacks almost knocked him out. Then Gravedigger told him to roll up. He was no longer the head of the whites. So Nick's got no choice now but to fight. Nick tells Busta Beatz to see him in cell A7. That's the one at the end of the bottom run, which he prefers to fight in because it's the furthest away from the control tower. Control tower is in the middle of the tower, and then you've got 4 pods all around the tower. So the tower's looking right down at the stairs to the upper tier. The guards are up here. And so at the end of the run is the furthest away from the guard tower. As they enter A7, the day room hushes to tune into the violence. When the fight lasts much longer than usual for Nick, the whites express concern and the hermits emerge from their cells. The fight drags on. More prisoners cluster in the day room's vantage points. Rooting for Nick, I see him pin Busta Beatz against the wall, yelling, "Give up, give up." Busta Beatz surrenders, but as soon as he is released, he leaps on Nick, who subdues him again. 10 minutes later, both are fighting and exhausted. This is one of the longest fights I ever was in the presence of. Nick puts Busta Beatz in a headlock and urges him to give up. I mean, you're hearing these guys smash against the bunk, smash against the wall, smash against the toilets, and this is going on and on and on and on. "I give up, you win," Busta Beatz says. Nick turns to leave the cell panting, as if he's just sprinted several hundred yards. Busta Beatz springs onto the small table and jumps on Nick's back. There's a tiny table bolted to the wall with a combination circle stool thing that you sit on if you're writing a letter home or whatever, looking at your legal paperwork or playing chess. So he's sprung off that table now onto Nick's back. Nick throws him off, his face contorting with fury. He unleashes punch after punch onto Busta Beatz' face, punches that would knock out an average man. Because, these Rule 11 people, the ones who are seriously mentally ill, I don't know where they get the strength from or something, but some of these guys will just take blows and fight to the death. They're just relentless. Blood gushes and streams all over Busta Beatz' face. Blood splatters on the walls. A volley of punches forces Busta Beatz backwards, cracking his head against the wall. I worry Nick might kill him. As Busta Beatz loses his balance, Nick pounds his head relentlessly until he falls unconscious. The only way that fight was going to end was with one of these guys going unconscious, because Busta Beatz was just not going to stop. "Fuck, I think I broke 2 knuckles," Nick says, emerging from the cell half covered in blood. He spits bloody saliva and pieces of teeth onto the floor. They were pieces of his own teeth. The Mexican Americans file into A7 and rouse Busta Beatz, who is barely able to stand. "Go back to your cell and clean yourself up." He staggers out, painting the concrete red with a trail of blood. The Mexicans, including the Jehovah's Witness, thank Nick for standing up for their race. Over the following days, Nick's hand swells up to the size of a grapefruit, and Busta Beatz' face turns purple and blue. Nick declares he will never fight another Rule 11 inmate again. And actually, it wasn't much longer after that than Nick stepped down as the head of the Whites. He got sick of fighting. His hand was like this big. He'd lost pieces from multiple teeth, and he was just realizing, yeah, he's a good fighter and he wins fights, but the people who win fights get in a lot of fights, and they have high mortality, and they sustain a lot of damage because other guys in there want to make names off them, and they want to fight them. I know people want to rise up and take control of the gang and fight him. So all this stuff. So in the end, Nick, in the beginning, he was just knocking people out quite easily, and he was king of the Whites, and you got that power thing going and your ego thing. But the price of that, at the end of the day, if you can't keep that fighting down, if you're not a bit more diplomatic, it's hard to be diplomatic in that environment. At the end of the day, you're going to start losing teeth. You're going to get bones broken. And he was lucky that he didn't get busted for any of this, but like I said, Little Italy had corrupted the guards, and even going around with his grapefruit hand was getting special long visits because he was clicked up with Little Italy. And because I clicked up with Nick, his fiance and my fiance used to come to the visitation area together, and Nick even used to get my visits extended as well through the guards. That's how much power and influence these Italian mafia guys had in Towers Jail. So I hope you've enjoyed that fight story. I do have a fight story playlist now, fights with T-Bone, fights with Warrior, and I will put the link to the prison fights playlist and Wildman fights in the description box below this video. Thanks for supporting the channel. Let's get up 250,000 subs is our next goal. Take care out there. Cheers from London.